I don't know. Can you hear me? Testing. Can you? Everybody hear me? Can not hear me? I'm on. Okay. All right. We'll just do it that way. It's like being.
We're accommodating the virtual audience as well. Just
I actually can't see you. So, yeah.
I'm gonna need to pass that to you.
Okay.
you tell us if this is good.
Really comfortable with that. The lavalier is working.
Okay. Cool.
Better? They're probably looking online like, what is this?
I know. That's a virtual audience.
Yeah.
Virtual audience.
Hello. Welcome everyone. Can you hear me pretty good?
Go a little closer.
Got me? A little closer? Is that good? All right. Thank you all for being here. Everybody tonight is a friend of this whole group that's here tonight. So please be comfortable in your seats. We're going to make sure that you have a wonderful opportunity to get to know our panelists and also get to know each other just a little bit as well. So welcome. I am the Arizona Commission on the Arts Commissioner, Angelia Hill, and I'm joined today by my co-moderator, who is also with the Arizona Commission on the Arts. She is the Program Director of Arts, Program Director of Arts Programming, and that's Keisha Bruce. And she also is joined as well with myself, with Ashley LeRae Sampson, and she is, yes, Ashley, we love Ashley. Ashley also has been able to participate with us as we have this event. Am I going in and out? Can you hear me? Here we go. From South Phoenix. So we want to make sure that you also get a little bit of an understanding of why we're here, and we will do that as we introduce our panelists, because they are all-star panelists from the fashion as well as arts community. And we wanted to bring this intersection of the arts community with art, fashion, and business together so that we could bring in the room, the right people, and we have tonight for you. So I definitely want you to make sure that you get a chance to get to know them even after we have completed our discussion. I also want to welcome one person who is in honor of her, to make sure that she knows that we are so appreciative that she's here. And she is the interim executive director. That would be Jackie Alling. Jackie's here. We're going to get started tonight with really a panel discussion. You're going to hear a little bit of an understanding of fashion, art, and their intersection together, as well as we're going to make sure that we have some audience questions. So the individuals that are first to raise their hand, we're going to give you a little bit of a reward for doing that to get you out of your comfort zone a little bit. And we'll make sure that we also repeat the question that our wonderful guests online can hear as well. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's have this conversation, get it going. Here you go, Keisha.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Keisha Bruce, and I am the Director of Artist Programs at the Arizona Commission of the Arts. And I know I see a few familiar faces, but for those of you who aren't familiar with the Commission, The Arizona Commission on the Arts is a state's arts agency that provides grants, programs, and a host of lots of services to support the arts in Arizona by partnering with arts organizations, schools, festivals, and of course, individual artists. So before I introduce you to our amazing slate of panelists, I just want to do a quick round of who's in the room. So by show of hands, how many of you consider yourselves artists or creatives? Oh, artists in the house, okay. And how many of you are actually folks who work in the fashion industry? All right, fantastic. And how many of you consider yourself entrepreneurs? Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, we have an amazing group of folks here to speak with you and discuss with you tonight. So why don't I just jump into bio? Keep cutting out. Me okay? Thank you.
I wonder if we should switch mics.
Just for the bios at least. Otherwise, I was like, this is going to be a long slog. All right. So first of all, I would like to introduce you to Ashley LeRae Sampson. Yay! So Ashley is a celebrity stylist and founder of Style Phoenix. After beginning her career as a celebrity fashion stylist for world-renowned superstars such as Kanye West, Jay-Z, various athletes and business persons, Ashley now teaches people how to align their personal and professional brands with their ideal self through business and spiritual advising, brand consulting, mindfulness, sound healing, and esoteric tools with Style Phoenix, founded in 2010. Their accompanying brand curated shop, shopstylephoenix.com, and healing outreach, the Esoteric Blueprint. Additionally, Ashley spent 2 years instructing a course at her alma mater, Arizona State University, in their Herberger Institute of School of Art fashion program, and has produced and hosted shows for social television networks where you can stream her healing miniseries of Sound Mind and more. So, round of applause for Ashley. And next we have Helen Jean, who is all the rounds of applause, before and after, it's fine, who is the Jackie Dorrance Curator of Fashion Design at the Phoenix Art Museum. Helen Jean is the Jackie, well, I said it already, yeah, here we go. She has been at the museum since 2019, returning after previously working there from 2017 to 2012. Her educational background includes a BFA from Stevens College in Fashion Design and an MFA from the University of Lincoln, Nebraska in Costume Design, along with focused study at the International Quilt Study Center in Lincoln, Nebraska. Along with previous experience at the Phoenix Art Museum, Jean has worked in the academic side of fashion design as an instructor at a number of colleges. And next we have Angela Johnson, who is the co-founder of Fabric. And I just want to say a shout out to the entire Fabric team for helping us get these mics under control. Angela Johnson is an award-winning, eco-friendly clothing designer and an absolute champion for the Arizona fashion industry. She is best known as the co-founder of Arizona's fabric incubator Fabric, and for creating upcycled ball gowns from thrifted t-shirts under her fashion brand, Angela Johnson Design. Angela got her start in LA, working in design and production for X Large Manufacturing, the line owned by Mike Diamond of the Beastie Boys, and X Girl, the line owned by Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth, for all you 90s kids. In the 1990s, she co-owned Monkey Wrench, a board sports inspired collection with Days of Our Lives actress Christy Clark. That was featured in 17 magazine and worn by celebrities such as Tori Spelling on 90210, Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, Leonardo DiCaprio, Christina Applegate, and many more. Woo-woo. You did that. And next we have Joanna Deshay, creative. Woo! creative director and designer of Black Russian label. Joanna Deshay is an international fashion designer, entrepreneur, and educator with over 12 years of experience in the fashion industry and 20 plus years in corporate America. She has been a university level professor for more than 7 years, and she loves to share her passion and expertise in fashion marketing, branding, and design with the many students she teaches, coaches, and teaches. This ASU alumnus is also a dynamic global leader with expertise in overseas manufacturing and sourcing, as her collection was before the pandemic manufactured in Bali, Indonesia. She has since brought her manufacturing stateside and is proud to be producing her collection right here in Arizona. So one more round of applause for these amazing groups of people we have here. Ready? Oh my goodness, where do we even start? Well, I'm gonna throw it to Ashley because I want Ashley to talk a little bit about, y'all know each other, so let's get into it.
Yes. So we know each other here, okay? We really know each other. I'll take that. We really know each other. We decided to put this particular panel together of amazing experts. Number one, because we have worked together on so many things over so many years. I've known some of the people here for over a decade. We've worked together for over a decade with other people in the room too. Dapsri, I want to give you a shout out. We worked with Dapsri for so many years, also a university professor, worked with us for many years too, just not on this panel today, you know. But we specifically wanted to choose these ladies and Brian. I want to mention that Brian Hill, he works with Phoenix Fashion Week. He's not able to make it tonight. They have an event that's coming tomorrow that he has to finish preparing for. So if he comes in late, you know, he can pull it up, but he may not make it this time, so we'll see. But that's why we wanted to choose these particular ladies and Brian because we have a lot to talk about. We've spent many years together having a lot of conversations talking about a lot of important things, fashion-oriented things, but also as artists. All of us in fashion are all artists as well, and as business people, especially business women, you know, and we have a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about, and we love to do that, so we just decided that we would open up this discussion to include you too. That way you guys can kind of get a peek on what we talk about and what's important to us and what we know matters, and you guys can, of course, in the end, throw in whatever you need to.
So cool. So yes, we're gonna play Pass the Mic. So I'm gonna pass it right back to you after this, Ashley. So as a fashion stylist, can you give us, let's see, how do I want to dig into this? What were some of the, hang on a second, I lost my place here. Don't worry, it's all in here. So I guess you could basically start off telling us what was some of the key moments of working as a fashion stylist, learning as you worked with all of these big brands, and what experiences helped you build your own brand?
Well, working with gentlemen like Jay-Z and Kanye West, I don't know how well, does anybody know Kanye? Like, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? And Jay-Z? Yeah, so I worked with them for years at a time. And as a stylist, it's fascinating because you don't just work with somebody. Like, there's a lot of people that work with them or that worked with us, but I sometimes, like, had to and other times enjoyed working with them one-on-one, basically hours at a time, just the two of us. Because I would work with them on their tours. So I would do the wardrobe for, we'll take Jay-Z because I worked with him for years. I worked with him for the longest time, out of all of them. I would do the wardrobe for him, for his shows. So when you would see him get up on the stage, that was me beforehand. For his dancers, if he had dancers, he never had dancers, others did. With the singers, with his band, he had some hype men like Memphis Bleak. I would do a lot of all of their wardrobe. So, you know, there's all these people, I had all these experiences. I worked with Keisha Cole, I worked with The Dream, I worked with a lot of athletes. And my experiences were different than I think anybody else's because it was one-on-one with them, by myself. You know, I learned differently. Also, being in that role, I was the one who was there when nobody else was there, like I just said. Meaning, if there was an issue, if the managers had to talk to, we'll say Jay or Kanye, they would be in the wardrobe room. There's a dressing room with everybody, and there's a wardrobe room with me and all of this important stuff. And this is where they'd have these conversations. Something just happened. We have to figure this out. So I would see how they would respond to certain things, you know? And that was one of the most helpful things for my business and for me as a professional. And when I started working with them, I was only 22. Okay, with both of them in 2007. It was a long time ago now. 2007 with both of them. And as a young person, I didn't even know really about branding yet, or about how important a brand would be, or what I need to create for myself. I watched that through working with him, and with him, and with him, and with her, with all of these different people, and I was able to see how important every little thing was. So it wasn't just about their clothes, it was about their sunglasses, their shoes, their shoelaces, how they are able to perform in their stuff, how the dancers are able to perform in their clothes, if I have to add anything in the crotch area to give them extra space, like all of these different things to think about, as well as how to make them feel comfortable with me, because I had the bags with all the money. The stuff you would think about in hip hop, right? The money rolls and the bags and the Jesus piece and Biggie's Jesus piece, like all these things I had to take care of, and they took it really seriously, like their brand and how they worked with me and how I represented their brand, and those are the first cues for me to be like, okay, what is a brand? Where does image and style come into play? Where does our own artistry come into play? And then how do we put it all together to create what we want others to see? And that was the thing I really learned, is that a lot of people are actually creating a persona, not necessarily an aligned, authentic brand, and that's what I didn't want to do. I wanted to be the person who, when you see me or when you know me, this is who I am. You guys know, we've worked together for so many years. This is who I am. I'm not a persona, and that was one of the things that I took away to help me with my other clients and with other people that I work with, so that they can align with their own brand versus trying to create this other thing that others are going to accept and appreciate.
Well, the next question leads right into that, and I think all of you will have other ways to chime in on that too. The fashion industry is a very fast-paced, high-pressure field. How do you, like you said, you were in the room where all of these things were taking place. How did you deal with that? How do you balance, your work, not to use the cliche, but work-life balance, and how do you stay grounded? How do you stay centered when you're also trying to do your best creative work at the same time, doing your best creative work under pressure?
Go. Yes. I'll go last because I have a big focus on mindfulness and what that really means, and so I don't want to take over, so I'll take last.
So the one thing for me, and I say this a lot to designers, is, and it's true for me as a designer, is I only design when I have something to say. Just really think about that as an artist, right? Because art is just that. It's an expressive medium. It's a way to really demonstrate what's happening in the environment. And what I'm seeing is a lot of people designing to make clothes, right? Designing to fit into a trend. Designing to, as opposed to designing with intent in mind. There's a very different space when you start designing intentionally, right? And so for all of the artists in the room, it's also about figuring out what you want to say. At the end of the day, what do you want to say? When they start the sentence with, Angela is, what follows? Right? Angela's about sustainability. Angela is about, right? Because she has steeped herself in what it is she stands for. And everything that she does aligns with that. And in terms of balance, it makes it very easy for things that are not aligned. Right? Someone comes to you and go, hey, I've got this great idea for children's clothes. And you go, yeah, no, I don't do kids' clothes, right? Your alignment, right? It's like your little litmus test, your little checks and balances for what it is that you do. But a lot of people are out here just trying to be someone else, right? I want to be the next Michael Kors. I always tell my students that, and I go, there's already a Michael Kors. Pick something else. Try you, right? That's the whole thing. And so a lot of times, it is because they don't know what it is that they want to say in this industry. So that's how you get balance. You get clear about what it is you want to do and how you want to change it.
Those are such great points. And I think this is kind of full circle because authenticity is really what we're talking about. And that's all about what you're talking about. If you're doing something that is solving a problem and you're authentically doing that as yourself, then that's going to make it successful because you're not trying to be something that you're not. You're trying to fill a void in the marketplace. You're doing it because of whatever that reason is, and that makes for good business. So I'm going to back up a little bit, and I'm going to say I'm so excited that we're all talking about fashion, art, and business because it makes so much sense to put them all together. Fashion is art, and the only reason that you really can spend time doing your art is if you can actually pay your bills while you're doing it. So it's business too, right? So this makes so much sense. And people who are doing something that they love, but they're also finding they're filling a void out there. So people, want the product. Then that is authenticity, and that's success in business. And like you said, if you're actually doing that, then I think you're naturally going to find a balance. I am guilty of overextending myself, and I think I need to step back once in a while and go, I need to find a balance. But I'll tell you why I do this. I'm here at this place probably 12 hours a day, at least. I'm here past what we're gonna be here tonight, almost every single night. I get here first thing in the morning. I'm here on the weekends. Why would I do that? I'm doing that because I love it. I love what I do, and I chose to be in this business because I love it. It makes me happy. It's exhausting. I go home and I'm like, and then I do it again. I'm like, what the heck? But I think it's better than going to do something you don't want to do, right? Like every day clocking in somewhere and doing something like if I were to have to go and be an accountant or something, that would not be me. I would be miserable, and then I would really be crying all day. At least I'm happy all day and I'm exhausted when I get home and it hurts, but I go back and do it again because I want to. So I think that your balance will come, but even if it doesn't, it's just passion that's going to keep you going and drive and keep you, balanced, I guess.
Absolutely. So I'm a little bit of an outsider in this group in the sense that the work that I do in fashion and costuming is where I'm not selling a product, I'm selling a story. So at the museum, we create stories that help people relate to objects, relate to moments, relate better to ourselves, relate to each other. And so I think the origin of our question was work-life balance. And so for me, it's very much research-based, brainstorming, and conversation. I have to stay grounded in what was. I have to make sure that I'm well-read. But it's really important to me to have conversations all the time with people about how they're expressing themselves and how they feel about clothing and how they relate to it. I love being in the gallery and listening in on other people's conversations and hearing them react and respond or be confused and hear why they're confused because they're wrestling with the information. So that's the long answer to what's my work-life balance. It's really engaging in the research. So I'm reading all the time. I'm trying to stay up on Fashion Week, and that's exhausting because everything's changing all of the time. But finding that balance is tricky, and I relate to every other comment that was up here, especially working 12 plus hours a day because I'm so fortunate that I'm doing my dream job. And there's so much joy in getting to do that. And I've worked long hours with everyone up here, and it's just that same sense of dedication to creating whatever that product is, but it's always with so much thoughtfulness. So anyway, next question.
Well, I think Ashley needs to answer this because she's the queen of how to balance.
Yes, thank you. The reason why they say I'm the queen of how to balance is because I have experienced a lot, I've seen a lot, I've been in these industries that I've already told you about, not just fashion, but music, hip hop, film, entertainment, sports, with the highest level of the highest people that work in these areas, and they damn near try to drive me insane. So I had to learn about balance, a long time ago. I had to learn, and it was hard. So I'm just gonna tell you guys some of the things that I do, okay? And this will let you know how much I've been through. I meditate. I've been meditating for a long time, for over 15 years. I pray, I do yoga, a lot of stretching, affirmations, sleep hypnosis, regular hypnosis, the list goes on, you guys. We have a garden called Grow Style Phoenix. We spend a lot of time in our garden. We do a lot of herbs and things like that. I do EFT tapping, I cry a lot, I laugh a lot, I cry a real lot, a whole lot, and then I laugh even more like a wild woman who's like, wah, ha, 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 and then like I'm crying, and I'm like, ha, 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 ha. It's like that kind of thing. And because of all of that stuff, I recognize like I have to put real serious things into play to keep myself balanced. And so I started years ago. We were all many of us, 3 of us were working together with Dapsery at a college a few years ago, 5, 7, 8, 10 years ago. And that was when I was learning how to set aside some time for balance. And so I tell my clients this, I say 5 minutes, like start with that. And so I would start with like 5 minutes, I'm gonna go outside, and that's it. And then I would make it be 10 minutes. And then it just opens up for you, 15 minutes. And basically, if you give yourself that time to balance, and if you love yourself enough to force yourself into it, the space opens up for it. And we are in a work, work, work society where on tour, for example, we load in at 8 o'clock in the morning, all these big things, and we load out at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we drive on the bus to the next city, and we load in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we load out at 2 o'clock in the morning. So when I say you need a lot of balance, I learned that back then. Taking rest, taking naps, like whatever you need to do to give yourself that space, that's a space that you need to actually create more space for the next things to come in, and that's part of the balance. So I do a lot of things. If you guys ever need to know more of what I do, I have the Esoteric Blueprint, which we mentioned earlier, but that's where I teach people how to balance, how to align, how to use these herbs, these tools, meditation, visualization, and I only have such a passion for that because it's really difficult in the fashion industry, in the entertainment industry, in arts, in business. It's hard, and it's not necessarily getting easier unless we make that shift to make it easier, and it all starts individually. Yeah.
I also think it's important that we're all women, and I think a lot of women have to figure out how to find family work balance. I mean, men do too, but I feel like it's a little bit more pressure on women, and I think that's a conversation that is an ongoing. I don't think there's an answer in this one. Personally, I incorporate my children into my work. Like yes, I run a sweatshop with children that are working. No, no, we don't. No, that's the beauty of having children. No. But that's an ongoing issue that I think we all, as a society, have to figure out how to figure out. You know, like how do we do this? Because our children need us, but we all need to work. So there needs to be a better solution for that.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. So loving this discussion. This intersection of business and art and fashion, the business is where I come in. So for me, working with small businesses is what I do every day, having the opportunity to make sure that artists are self-sufficient, that artists actually monetize their artwork and get paid. And we want to make sure that they're not starving artists anymore. So we have an opportunity with the foundation that I work with to create access to capital. How do we make sure through the commission that we can, Keisha hopefully will explain this as well, how we can make sure that artists receive grants. So that is in and of itself, the money part is a stressor, right? We don't have enough money to run our businesses or to do the work that we really love and we want to do every day. Then what an opportunity it is for us to say, all right, we'll help you, but let's just relax a little as well and take all of that stress that we're experiencing from day to day, especially when it comes to money, because money is a big stressor in most people's lives. But to understand that it really has to be this way in which we can have more balance in every way, especially what our panelists are describing.
I just want to chime in on something that I kind of picked up from what everyone said. We're really talking about being really intentional, because you have to. It's really kind of the only way to stay centered and really balanced and to do your best creative work. But I want to dig right in. It is Black History Month. Thank you. Yes. So we are going to hey, give it up for the month of February. So I really, on that topic of intentionality, I really wanted to throw it back to you, Angela, because you and your co-founder Sherry have been very intentional about the importance of focusing on BIPOC artists to be able to give them access to the services that Fabric has to offer. There are a lot of marginalized folks who don't have access to the amazing services that you have, and so you've been very forthcoming with information, training, and especially scholarships. So can you tell us a little bit more about why this is so important to you? And then, of course, I was going to say, I know, Joanna, you're going to chime in on this too. I'll just pass the mic all the way back. Sounds good.
So yes, actually, when we created Fabric, this is a nonprofit, and what we really do is help apparel entrepreneurs by providing them with resources so that they can start businesses, but they can actually manufacture products. And manufacturing is so hard. It's got so many obstacles in the way. You have to meet minimums, you have to understand production management, you have to understand quality control, you have to have resources, you have to have people that make patterns, grade them, make markers, cut, sew, you have to source wholesale materials. It's a lot. And most people fail, to be honest with you. And we all have like a vision of what we want to create, but trying to execute that is like almost impossible in this industry. Plus, the industry is set up for big brands who manufacture overseas in large volume. So there's not a lot of resources, and hardly anybody's going to make small batches for you. So when we set this place up, we wanted to provide guidance so that we can explain and teach somebody who's never done this how to be a production manager and how to do quality control, and then provide no minimum manufacturing for them, and we wanted to make it all affordable. So a lot of the stuff we do is free, and a lot of it is below market rates. And then we especially, even though everything that we do, is discounted or free, not everything, a lot of it, the educational part is, the manufacturing isn't. We have to pay people to do that. If we had enough grants, maybe, but it's all manual labor in the United States. So they have to get paid, and they get paid above minimum wage for that. So in order to make it more affordable, we want to provide the education part and the hand-holding and everything at discounts. Now, to go one more step, we want to help disadvantaged entrepreneurs, because it's hard for everybody, but it's harder for people who are at a disadvantage in some way. So we actually scholarship into our program, which is called a roadmap. It has about $100,000 worth of information, of resources, of guidance, hundreds of things that are in there, tons of videos, everything. And we scholarship minorities, veterans, people with disabilities, and people with a significant financial need into that. And that allows them to use their money for the actual making of their product. So they're not spending the money on a production manager or education, they're getting all of that for free. And then we were so lucky recently to partner with the city on a BIPOC manufacturing grant, and we were able to select some amazing entrepreneurs, one of that's sitting right here, and be able to give them money for manufacturing, so that one more level of assistance that will make that easier, and that is the whole reason we exist. Sherry and I both have manufactured. We know how hard it is, and we just want to make it easier for people. We want to make it easier for people who maybe don't have everything easy for them,
Powerful. Yeah, if I could just touch on that a little bit. And what they're doing is, by the way, unusual. There aren't very many places around the country that does this. So you have to understand how unique of a space this is, how unique of a program this is. And it's because, unfortunately, there's still a tremendous amount of inequities that exist in fashion, right? It is not an equitable business. If you can look at any runway show and you can count the number of people of color you see going down. Even more than that, you can count the number of people that are over a size, dare I say, 0? I know I was going to say it, but it sounded rude, but it's true, right? So you can count the number, and the thing about it is that it is not, it is disproportionate, right, to the people that are purchasing these items. So when you look at the runway models and you look at the kind of ethnocentrism that's happening in fashion, it is not representative of the community around it. And that's the part that's problematic, because we are perpetuating a narrative that is not the whole story. I won't say it's not true, because there are people that are that size that, that they are perpetuating, but it's not all of us. And so this is important, because for designers like me that have a voice, that want to design for real bodies, right, that have round bits and, plumper bits and, things like that, real bodies that are your bodies, that are my bodies. It's important that we have that advantage because we have historically been disadvantaged. We have not had a seat at the table, and what Angela and Fabric and what they've done is they're like, we'll build our own damn table. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, forget it, you're not gonna give us a seat, no worries. We'll just build our own table, and we'll bring people in that really want to make a difference and have something to say in this space. So kudos to you for what you all are doing. Cheers. So, no, I
have a question. I was just gonna say, I wanted to make sure that we talked to Helen about this too, with her and how she diversifies her situations with the art museum too. So, yeah.
Well, but before we talk about that, I had a question, because I wanted to get your all's opinion on then, since you all are more actively in the fashion industry, I'm more of an observer. Fashion shows and presentations, are you of the opinion that they are becoming more diversified? I mean, we are seeing a change on the runway, we're seeing a change in magazines. Is this a true change, a shift, or is this fashion taking advantage of, a moment of society shining a light on more diversity, and there's going to be a new trend in a few more years on the runway, and we're not so much being as inclusive as we thought we were being? And I'm not projecting that that's what happened. I'm curious of your opinions.
Well, so for me, because I research it for the class I teach at ASU, and that's important to me, I want to ensure that the data is accurate, that it's timely, and what we're seeing is a lot of designers, especially high-end designers, we talked about this earlier, especially haute couture, things that are happening now with a lot of these high-end brands, they are what I call being performative, right? They're like, oh, there's the one black woman, there's the biracial woman, oh, we've got it, Spanish or Hispanic appearance, right? And that's what it is, it's performative. So then if they are questioned, called on it, they go, but did you see the black woman we had in there? We had one, right? And what I'm saying is, when it's genuine, when it's authentic, when it's truly inclusive, it just is. You cast the person that looks the best in the garment. You cast with an eye of equity to say, let's kind of broaden this up a little bit. And you push the casting director to see other bodies. If you have a room of 1,000 models that you're casting and they're all size 0 and they're all white female, you may get a brunette and a blonde and you may diversify hair color, but at the end of the day, it's about the product set that you're given. So the problem is systemic. It goes all the way to the casting directors. It goes all the way to the agencies that pick these models. It goes it goes back and back and back. So at some point, as a designer that's casting for a show, I have to say to the casting agent, I want to see other bodies. I want to see other silhouettes. I want to see different narratives. Show me a transgender model. How about we, you know what I mean? And so because we're not asking for that, what we're seeing now is very myopic. It's this very, and it's so performative, and they're using the same models over and over and over again. They won't pick one that's necessarily African American, but they'll pick an African model, right? You guys know this. Why? Because that's that's kind of the status quo. Everyone does that. So the push is to say there's more. And the push is to say that it can be a size 0 and a size 2 and a size 8 and a size 10 and a size 14, and it's not an estimation of or. It's either the 0 or the 2, right? So if we reframe how we are casting, I think we'll see a broader, more inclusive lens that's authentic and not performative. So that's what I'm seeing now. So.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I want to say that I've been producing fashion shows for 20-something years, and back when I was first producing them locally, the agencies all had, the typical models, right? And when I would ask, the designers to find models that, we would all do our own scouting and not go to the agencies, we would end up with some cool, more diverse models and lots of different bodies and things like that. And we would put them on the runway, and it would be amazing. And because the designers are all making clothes for real humans, and they don't have the luxury of, the big brands that they can make this one particular size 0 for the runway and then make the other stuff for the store that is in different sizes. We're, as a small brand, you kind of have to just, the piece has to be something you can actually sell. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. So it just made more sense for these designers to get more, different bodies in there. And I remember people picking on us for it. Like back then, we would get a lot of pushback, and people would be like, "Ugh, those aren't real models." And at this show, you need to use real models or whatever. And the real just meant skinny, tall people. And I was like, that, and all, Caucasian, and I was like, well, that's not going to work for any of these designers. We're making real people clothes, and we need other models. And I noticed that in the last decade, maybe 8 years, something like that, totally opposite. Like, in fact, all the agencies have a lot more diverse models. And when we put people on the runway that look like they used to, then we get the pushback, where are all the diverse models, you know what I mean? Which is great, which is amazing, and that's the way it should be. So long answer to that question, I don't think it's a trend. I don't think it's a fad. I think that this culture has started to make a change, and I'm at least rose-colored glassing it, hoping for that. But I feel it because I've just seen it like slowly happen, and I think it's this generation, the young generation. They are changing the world. They're so much better than my generation. And we all have to answer to that, and that's who those big corporations are answering to, and that's the customer that's growing up. So I hope that is a change.
Well, and I guess I would say that I think the power of the customer is so much greater than it has been before. I think social media has a lot to do with that. And so I think it's, I hope that this is not a trend and that this is really a change that's occurring broadly across the industry. Within our museum walls, we are attempting to really diversify the voices that you encounter when you're reading labels and when you're watching video screens and when you're seeing advertisements and marketing that draws people in. We had a presentation recently that was really looking at the visitorship that comes into the museum, and it was breaking it down by a huge variety of different points to consider, and what it gave us was a greater understanding of how to reach our audiences and really engage with people in a way that connects with them and that they want to come and be return visitors to the museum. And so the ways that we've been employing that are that we have a series of labels. We call them reframed labels, and it's where we invite community members, artists, other individuals outside of the museum to come in, take a look at the artwork, and give us their opinion and help describe and explain this piece, this movement, this art, and reframe it for our visitors. And within the fashion collection, we're making making great efforts to try to better tell a complete story of fashion history. We can't hit every moment, but we can certainly make sure that we're not just telling a European or a predominantly white colonial American version of fashion history, and that's broadly what's discussed in fashion history books. And so I think this movement that we're seeing through social media of models and a diversity of representation, we're going to be seeing that more and more in fashion design collections as designers and pieces and trends and moments are being actively sought out, again, to better represent our human experience.
I have a few things to add about that too. With diversity, a few things to think about when I'm wondering if something is truly being diversified is how are the people being treated? Because there's been a lot of times that I have been in the rooms and at the tables and I was the only black person or the only black woman, and that might look nice and I could be there for a reason. I'm trying to, create the space for others, but I'm being mistreated, underpaid, things like that, right? So there's the diversity part, but then there's the equity part. There's been times that I've collaborated with people, they've said that they wanted what I have to say, they want to know from my perspective, but they'll pay me far less, or they'll offer me completely different projects to work on, that it more so seems oftentimes like, I know I have great perspective, it's different from what you're experiencing, I get that, and it's nice to put a brown face on your stuff, but I'm not being treated like the rest of the people who are at the same level as me. First of all, you know what I mean? Like all the stuff that I've done in my life and in my career, and you know, like all of us can, probably everybody in this room can probably relate to that, where you're like, do you know who I am? Do you know what I've done? Do you know who I've worked with? Do you know who I have the energy of all these billionaires, okay? And I'm being treated like some little girl who has a little bit of perspective. I don't like that, and that's what I see. I see a lot of, yes, put a face there, yes, get what they have to say and suck from them, but don't treat them as we are treating other people. So with that being said, I don't think it's a fad, but I can think back to the 90s when there was black people on everything all over, and it's less about are we out there doing it, that's a yes, okay? And it's more about when are they going to try to stop us and how, because that's what happened before, okay? Do you guys remember UPN 45? Okay, all those, you know, all those black shows and stuff and all that kind of stuff and all of those hip hop people that became designers and all of that, it's all squashed. You guys see that most of that's not around anymore if you knew anything about that in the past. And so one thing I would like us all to think about is, are we diversifying, okay, because we're way past that time anyway. Are we actually being inclusive and welcoming belonging and equity? And how are we treating the people? Because I've also learned that I have had to assimilate a lot to get where I am, and I never liked that. So I would have to assimilate enough to be able to mix with the person or the people that I'm working with, get in there and then say what I need to say, and then they're taken aback. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you have that perspective. And it's like, that's the same perspective as all the rest of us. But nobody's at the table to say it. So also creating those spaces that are the safe spaces where other diverse people from you, whoever that is, actually has a safe space to come and work and collaborate. Everybody here has created that, which is beautiful. I know I've worked with all of us here, but that's not the case in a lot of different situations. You know?
Are we keeping it real or what? Right? Absolutely. Let's continue opening up this space.
You segued right into my next question, actually, Ashley. So what I really wanted to know is, you know, y'all have all worked together, but talk to me more about collaboration. Talk to me, what have you learned from your collaborations with other people, for not just for yourself as a person, but also for your career, and what makes a good collaboration? And I would love some of you to chime in on that equity piece, because that's something that I do feel that is a problem cross-disciplined in, you know, the fine art world as well. We value an artist's work, their opinion, the way they look at the world, but then don't cut them the proper size check for that labor and that intellectual property. So when artists enter into these collaborations, they're not often given the respect and the attention and the payment that they deserve. So can we just talk about, like, what makes a good collaboration? What makes it worth it for you? How has a good collaboration benefited you as a person, your career? Yeah, riff off that. I would just love to hear you all talk about that.
And gender identity as well. Gender identity equality.
Within collaborations? Oh, I gotta think on that one. Let me pass the mic. Okay.
So here's something that's really important. I saw a lot of hands go up. Artists, hands, let me see. Okay, fashion designers. Okay, look at little Mama Race. You know what? Yes, yes, yes. I see you. Here's the thing I want you to remember, and I want you to say it to yourself over and over again when you're thinking about collaborations, and it's the following. There is enough. There is enough. There is enough for all of us. There's enough room for us all to shine. There is enough. There is something about a climate of creating that everybody is worried about getting the credit. Oh my God, they're not going to know that I'm the one that did that, right? But if you're more concerned about the art, you'll just create and collaborate and be worried about the product. And if you keep that in mind, you'll have good collaborations that are long-standing. That's why we've all stayed connected. It's because we're not worried about, well, make sure you tell them I did that. Make sure that you tell them I'm the one that created the panel and that I'm the one that invited. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's about what will you walk away with, right? Well, how will you benefit from this discussion and this conversation? The thing about collaborations, I want to say, especially to my students that are here, I see some students from my class. Excellent, you followed advice, nicely done. Glad you all are here. Don't worry about the collaboration having immediate benefits and results. I don't know how many times young people are like, well, am I getting paid? You know, well, how many hours will I be working? I'm like, darling, how many fashion shows, you know, do you think you get invited to? You have to put in the time to collaborate, because every single collaboration I've learned in my life is like a little mini audition for the next thing you might get to do. And when they see how you showed up, how you work, Nikki, you know this, how you produce, and how humble you are. Did you have humility and show a little bit of grace and kindness when doing this work? When the next thing comes up, guess what? You're usually top of mind. You'll get a text or a phone call, we all have, to say, hey, what are you doing? I've got this thing. Because they remember how vested you were when you weren't getting paid. Okay? So when you think about collaborations, think about the end product. And don't search for this kind of instant gratification. I know that's our generation. We are such TikTokers. We want to know that if we do it now, we're going to be famous tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. I'm so sorry to tell you. But, with time and investing, in yourselves, you can be. But it requires you do the work, right? So just remember, there is enough. So.
Oh my gosh. How many people are on the planet? 8.6 billion? 8.2 billion. God, it just increased a lot. Wasn't it like 7 billion just like last year or something? Am I wrong? It's something. Okay, with 8.2 billion people on the planet, there is enough for everyone, right? Everybody who comes in these doors and they want to start a business and they're like, oh, can you sign this NDA? And, oh, I don't want to be in this show with this person and blah, 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 or whatever. I'm like, you should just, even if you're doing the same thing as the person next to you, share resources. Like, there's enough clients in the world. There really are. There's enough people in the world to buy your stuff and buy her stuff, And the only way that we're all going to succeed is if we rise together and we collaborate and we share and we bond. And I think there's a difference between, so there are a lot of people that are like, oh gosh, they're not paying me, so I'm not going to do this. But then there's that whole like, well, you should get paid for what you do, right? So there's these two things here. I think there's an appropriate time for both of them. And it goes back to what you were saying. If you're collaborating with a bunch of people and you guys want to produce something together, then sometimes there isn't any money coming from anywhere, but we're all hoping that we're building something together. And if you can contribute and I can contribute and she can contribute and everything, then like it's a stepping stone to the next thing, and we built a group, and maybe nobody gets paid for it, but it's worth it in the long run, right? And then there's, okay, I'm hiring you for this thing because there's money behind it somehow, like it's sponsored by a corporation, or there's a grant behind it or something like that, and then yes, everybody needs to get paid fairly for it. But when it's a bunch of like starving artists that are just like trying to build a name for each other and build their community and everything, sometimes you do have to put in that time. I still do those things for free, and I've been in this industry for 25 years. And it's because it does build these bonds. Like, you guys are sisters, like, to me. Like, I love you guys, and it's because we get to do these things together. And all the people that come through here, I feel that way, and I would just do it without pay. But again, it goes back to that whole, if you love what you do for a living, you never really have to work a day in your life, yeah. And so the bonus is the getting paid for it. So somehow, and in this conversation where fashion, art, and business intersect, we have to figure out, like, how do you balance that? We're throwing all these questions back together. How do you make money doing what you love, but still be able to do these things that are enjoyable to you, that maybe don't pay you, and understanding when that's okay and when the other thing is okay, right? So there's never an answer to anything, but I just want to throw all of that out there to think about, because there is like this whole misnomer, I think, with people where like
oh, well, they just don't pay fairly, or I'm not going to work with this person because they always ask me to do something for free. But sometimes that person just wants to collaborate and create something with you, and it's worth it in certain situations as well.
I have two quick thoughts on collaboration. One is I think you should invest in your colleagues. I think that you should pay attention to the people that you get to work with. I've been very fortunate that I've gotten to observe some really, really talented artists and designers, and the ones that invested in their colleagues and their support, it was obvious in the culture that they had created, but also in the product that they could create. The other thought that I have about collaboration is to have the courage to speak the craziest ideas that pop into your head. And you need to package it in a way that people can hear it, and that they can take those ideas and understand that it came with an energy and with a desire to really create something that you're inspired by. But a quick example, I had a great opportunity to work at the Art Institute, and we had a photography program, and one of the photography instructors and we cooked up this idea to do an underwater photo shoot with some of our students in their dresses, and the models and the photography students were underwater with scuba gear, and it was just a wacky idea that we came up with over coffee, and it was one of the greatest projects that we had got to do while we were there, and it was because we had the courage to just toss this crazy idea out there and pursue it. And it was a really formative collaboration, both for us instructors, but for the fashion students and the photography students to get to work together. And so those are my two thoughts on collaboration.
I'm super pro collaboration, specifically because I've spent a lot of, even as a stylist, like you kind of are working on your own, And as a business person, especially when you're trying to be authentic to yourself, it's really easy to do a lot of things on our own, which makes me want to collaborate with others a lot more. So I do a lot of collaborations. I prefer, at this point in my life, if most of them are paid, right? But I have spent many a time, and I still do and will, doing things that matter to me that are unpaid. That doesn't necessarily make what a good collaboration is for me. But one thing that I do want to touch on with your gender identity question is the way that our gender comes into play with our collaborations, and some of those layers, of working with one another. And a lot of women say, I can't work with women, and I don't feel that way at all. I do not feel that way. I love working with women. I love it, and yeah, we invited Brian too, but I love working with men too. You know what I mean? It's different. So for me, with the collaborations, I think that one of the most important things is, what is the energy? Like, do you really even align? Is there any similarities? What is that like? And how do you treat each other, and how do you treat others? Because if I'm collaborating with somebody and I don't like how they're treating me or somebody else, I'm not going to collaborate with them again, because I also don't trust you to work with my people. I'm not going to send anybody your way. I'm not going to suggest anything to you. I don't trust you. I don't trust how you treat me. I don't trust how you treat these people. I'm not going to, it's that kind of thing too. I want everyone to be treated well. So that's a big part of the collaboration. But with the gender specifically, we have to, what I've found, I've been able to work really successfully with a lot of men and really successfully with a lot of women, and I've had poor situations with both as well, on either side. So for me, I try to make sure that I can manage my inner masculine and feminine energies as I'm working with anybody. So just because this is a woman does not mean that they have fully feminine energies. They might have a lot of masculine energies that I now have to balance as well. Or just because it's a man, they might not have all these masculine energies. They might be more in their feminine energies. So how do I balance that? And the more balanced, we can be with that, the easier it is for me to stay in the middle and then shift a little bit this way and then shift a little bit this way to create the space for the collaborations that I'm looking for, and boundaries. Boundaries with women, boundaries with men, and holding ourselves to the kind of standard that we want to work with in the first place, so that we can be that match and that creative space for others to collaborate with that too. And if you mistreat me, I don't like you anymore, and I don't want to work with you. And I feel like that needs to be more of a discussion that we start having is, no, I don't want to work with people who do certain things, instead of always trying to be like, I don't know. Like, I have really strong boundaries now. I've been through a lot, and that has really helped me with my collaborations. I'm really quick to say, this is not okay with me, I'm never working with this person again. I'm quick to do that, and I didn't used to be. And the quicker I got those other people out of the way, the more space I had for the same people that I was already working with to rise and still be the same amazing people without all those other energies kind of getting in the way. So that's another part of that too. And a lot of women are not taught to have boundaries. And a lot of people, men and women, do not respect when women have boundaries, and they do not respect when women don't have boundaries. So we have to be very aware of the energy and be very aware of the repercussions also and the consequences of sticking to our boundaries, of saying no, of walking away, of quitting the job, of firing the person. We have to be aware of that too. And it can also be very dangerous. So you really got to be careful with your collaborations, to be honest with you.
There we go. Especially when we want to make sure you get paid. Yes, that's important.
Well, let's bring this in a little bit too. I would love to hear you, Angelia, talk about a little bit more from your perspective, from thinking of artists in fashion from the entrepreneurial aspect, but also collaboration business. Ashley, you really hit it there about you need to pick the people you work with closely. And I always say, I always tell artists, I've been saying this for decades, that your network of support, as an artist, as a creative, other artists and other creatives will always be your biggest asset and resource. So what you said, Helen, about collaborating with your peers rather than, was it Issa Rae said, collaborate like horizontally. Don't always try to be a climber. So Angelia, like when you're working with your organization and you're starting to work with like new entrepreneurs, like what would you tell them about collaboration or choosing who to work with?
Oh, good question. Thank you. We actually have a mentoring and an advising program, and that is a key part of one of the areas that we really focus on, and it is about how do you create this sphere of influence? How do you have this whole circle of people in your sphere that influence you in a positive way, of course, but also in ways that you can interconnect and bring them into your business and in ways that they can support you best, but also in ways in which you can looking outside of just your particular product or your area of interest. And that actually brings another way in which your business can grow and develop. And we want to make sure that especially Arizona companies, Arizona artists consider themselves business owners, that they treat their artistry, that they work through their projects as business owners, and understand that the business that they're running is able to be monetized in such a way that you can't be on an island by yourself. You're going to need to have clients. You need to have partners. You need to have other people that are a resource for you, like the commission and like other business owners as well, that aren't necessarily going to compete with you, but they're absolutely going to complement your business as well. Yeah, good question. Thank you for that. And in a minute, I think we're going to start asking you guys, so start thinking about what questions.
Questions in here, but
Yeah.
before we go to Q&A, I thought, one, does anybody want to touch on, we can do this together, if there are any last comments about what do you think is not being discussed enough in the intersection between fashion, business, and art? And also tell us, go ahead, plug what your projects you're working on. Tell us how we can get in touch with you. Tell us what you're working on that we might be interested, what you have planned or coming up.
Well, I just think one last thing that we should touch on, because it's an important topic for all of us, is sustainability in the fashion industry. And really, I'm going to pass it to you because you're really kind of leading that here in Arizona. Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah, that is exactly what I would love to talk about when you said, are there any last things? And manufacturing, what I've been talking about before, is unsustainable. Fashion is the second most polluting industry on the planet. It's ready for disruption and change, and really the only way to do that is consumers, all of us. We're driving the prices down, you guys. We're the ones that insist that our clothing should cost less than our lunch, and that's not okay. It's art. To paint
over there. How many hours did that take you?
I painted these paintings and that one over there in years. I mean, hours. Why don't know? It's not hours. These have been years of me, and I'm still not even done. You know, some of them are still only mostly done, but not entirely done, and it takes a long time.
And that's the same with clothing. You know, when you make a garment, if you buy a wedding dress, it's like $10,000, right? And it's because somebody spent more than hours making it, and all of that time needs to get paid for somehow. And the fact that we can go buy a $10 shirt somewhere, really, you should think about that for a minute. Like, what does it take to make a $10 shirt? What does it take to make a $30 shirt? Even a $50 shirt is not enough, because the amount of hands that have to touch it, and the artistry that went into it, and the thought that went into it, and all of that is, it needs to be, you know, we need to value that. And when we're forcing the prices down like that, then the brands are forced to figure out how to make it cheaper, right? And so then that's when we have all this unsustainability, and that's when we go get manufacturing overseas in places that are unsustainable, and you know, there's a lot of horrible things that happen in labor. And then it's also volume. The more you make of something, the cheaper it is, right? So if you're manufacturing 500,000 or 1 million of the same shirt, then you can get it cheaper. But where's the specialness in any of that, right? We're all wearing the same thing if that's the case. So fashion is art, and we should appreciate that, and that means there should be limited availability of that piece of art, you know, and then we should be willing to pay more for that. So we're unique, and you know, we are like carrying the fact that we own this, and we're passing it down generation to generation like it used to be. It's all messed up, and we need to fix it. And so when you can manufacture domestically, and you can make something that's special, you can make it in small batches, somebody should be willing to pay more for it. And that's the key to this being a business. You know, if you can explain that to your customer and they get it and they're willing to spend more for it because of fill in the blank. It's special, it's pretty, it's filling a void in the marketplace, it fits me where this brand doesn't make anything that fits me, whatever the reason is, then they're going to spend more on that piece, and then you're going to be able to pay your bills, you know, doing that. So one of the things that we're doing here at Fabric is trying to encourage that reshoring of manufacturing and trying to provide solutions that make it more efficient so that it can be more affordable. And we believe that technology is the answer to that. And if you can take away some of the human labor so that, you know, you can actually like take the humans and let them be creative, and then some of that human labor is being done by technology, then you can make the price a little bit more affordable, right? And so some of the pieces that you see over there are an example of this technology. We're actually using a lot of 3D design tools that can enable somebody to design a pattern, design a print, embed that print into the pattern, virtually stitch it up on an avatar with the body measurements of your choice, see what it's going to look like before you ever put scissors to cloth. And that, you are saving tons of money making samples, trying to perfect this thing. Then once you create your really cool, unique thing, and maybe if it has a cool print on it or something, we actually have the ability to print the pattern pieces with the prints embedded into those pattern pieces, so that you're not just taking a t-shirt and screen printing it after it's been a finished product. You're actually printing the prints, and I'm wearing a piece that is an example of that, like an engineered print. So if you wanted an octopus tentacle to wrap around your sleeve and come around the front of your dress or whatever, you can do that with this technology. And then now, with more technology, you can actually make money selling a digital twin in the metaverse and NFT it. You know, and so there is so much opportunity for fashion designers now, being artists and being able to incorporate this technology that makes it more sustainable and special. You can justify a higher price point, and you can make double the money because you're selling it in the, you know, the fashion verse and in the physical reality as well. You know, so to me that is like the most important thing that's going on in fashion right now. And that's going to allow entrepreneurs to really, you know, take over the whole fashion industry, like apparel entrepreneurs instead of mass-produced clothing.
So historically, fashion's been considered a major global polluter, and it's really water. And it's from the beginning of the fiber production, whether it's natural fibers or they've been synthesized in a laboratory. But once you have a fiber and you've created yarn, you've created garments, the minute you want to start applying color, then again, we are using tons and tons and tons of water once we get into finishings and all of the processing that goes into it. And so good news is Copenhagen Fashion Week is happening right now, and they have created a sustainability initiative, and this is the second or third year that they've enacted this, and it's where the collections, the time that's invested, the presentations of the runway shows, the fabrications, everything has been calculated, measured, and very carefully chosen so that it hits within this target range to keep them as sustainable as possible. And I mean, there's really great articles that you can find out about, and they lay out all of the measurements that they're tracking. But that's a major shift because they're looking at the industry top down, from conception to creation to presentation to delivery on the shelves. And so it's a new model that, you know, it's going to take years and years and years for this to be applied, but it's really exciting that an entire top-down look at the industry is occurring. And then on the technology note, there's some really exciting new technology that's coming out of this need that we've created now, that we've not been terribly responsible with the planet, and now we're having to deal with these decisions and these choices. And it's that fashion designers and textile technicians are exploring the natural world in laboratories to discover new ways that we can either synthesize materials or blend materials with different chemicals. And so we've got different leathers. So we've got mushroom leather and wine leather, and there's a cactus leather that's coming out. There's a coffee leather, there's cork leather, there's mushroom leather. There's all these different materials that are necessitated because we have to figure out how to make new things. So I find that exciting.
So exciting. And that jacket right there, that leather jacket, we made the same one out of cactus leather. And that we printed out the sleeves and the fronts and the backs on the printer I'm talking about, with the print embedded right onto this roll of cactus leather. Like, how cool is that?
So for me, I echo what both of these ladies are saying, but for me, I want to go and take it a step further. I want to take it a step backwards, I'll say, in terms of fashion education. We need to produce better, more mindful designers, point blank, period. Like, the curriculum needs an overhaul. We really need to talk about all of these things much earlier than, when they're already out in the industry producing. Even more than that, we need to build equity and the lens of equity into design curriculum so that students come out understanding the gap, understanding what they can do to fill it, and understanding that the tables that they sit at, they may be the only one, and they've got to be brave enough to say, hey, question, right? Because things like those H&M ads that you saw with the beautiful little black boy that was wearing Coolest Monkey in the jungle, you all remember that ad campaign? If you looked at it through an equity lens, because a lot of people have to approve that kind of ad, just so you know, in a company as big as H&M, right? And why did that happen? That happened because we haven't trained people to have an equity lens, right, an empathy lens to say, hey, question, just a quick question. Does this strike anyone as odd? Like, is anyone uncomfortable? You know what I mean? Because I'm a little uncomfortable, But, and that starts with design schools. That starts with design curriculum. You have to build the technology piece, the sustainability piece, but you also have to teach designers to be more equitable in their work, and how they administer their work and how they view their work, whether they're designing, marketing, right, whichever kind of vantage point they sit from. And I dare say that this notion of equity and inclusion and diversity is everybody's job, not just the people of color in the room. So.
To piggyback really quick off of that, yes. To piggyback really quickly off of that, are you still taking social aspects? Okay, so Joanna and I have taught the same class over the course of the years at the Arizona State University, and that class touched a lot. I don't teach there anymore, but she's teaching the class now, so I know a lot about it. That class touches so much on social aspects. Obviously, that's what it's called in fashion. And one thing that I learned was talking through with these students about what they needed and what mattered to them, what their values were. Sustainability, huge value. Ethics, huge value, how they were treated, a huge value, but also them staying sane. They were having the hardest time. I started working the month before the pandemic hit. So I got to see these students from a whole different perspective all the way up through the pandemic, and we would do weekly sound healing, you know, where they could stay after class, and I was virtual, so I would do sound healing for them, and I would do extra topics like lectures on mindfulness and energy and balance and what they needed, and they would say that those were some of the most important things they had ever learned, and that they wanted those things taught at the college. And that's one of the things when you say this is what they need. This is not only what they need, what we know they need, it's what they know they need, which is the wild part that we're so far behind on that. But you know, going back to what's needed, all of that is needed. And I do want to touch on one more thing too, really quick, is the importance of having leadership roles with whoever you are and whatever you're doing, because you can't, if you're not at the table and creating your own tables, you have to be both, okay? You can't bring people with you. Like, for example, I got the job at ASU as a professor, which is amazing, from Joanna, who said, hey, there's a job that's open at ASU, you'd be the perfect person. If Joanna had been at that high of a level, she wouldn't have been able to say, hey, this is another person to bring on. And that goes for every one of us, where she's also the executive director of Diversity Leadership Alliance. She's hired me to do multiple workshops with them too, paid, not just regular, you know, also actual paid collaborations. And it's things like that where you care enough to get where you need to be with collaborations and with what the other students and people around you need, what the younger people need, what the older people need, what everybody needs, and start creating the space for yourself to get where you need to go so that you can create more space for others to step into that with you. And that's one of the most important things that I've experienced with this panel, but also with a lot of other people in this room too. So I know we want to give it over to our friends. So.
Exactly. Good. So we want to hear from you as well, the audience. So I hope you've been thinking about some questions you can ask the panel. Good. We see some hands going up. So do we need to? Oh.
There's a few call to actions you guys need to know about. I can probably run them down really quick, but Helen has an amazing art exhibit at the Phoenix Art Museum. You guys have to check it out. It's so beautiful. Okay. Angela has a few things too. Do you want to talk about? Wait,
Oh, call to action. We are moving, and we're actually moving just a few yards from this building. We're having a grand opening on April 22nd, so mark your calendar right now. You're all invited. And then we are fundraising for that as well, because it's going to be expensive to move that cool printer I was talking about. So if you would like to help us, there is a fundraiser page on our website. There's also a QR code on the way out on this little fabric printed flyer. And you can put your name on the building, like we're doing a brick, you know, like the fabric. Yes, so bad. We love our puns. And for as little as $200, you can have your name on the first digital fashion innovation center in the United States. So.
Well, next Wednesday evening, if your evening is free, please come join me at Phoenix Art Museum. We have a wonderful support organization called the Arizona Costume Institute. They actually started the fashion design collection in the 1960s, but they're having a recruitment event on Wednesday evening, and I'll be giving a tour of our new exhibition, Move, the Modern Cut of Jeffrey Bean. So please come out and join us, and I'd be happy to spend some time in the gallery with you.
I already gave my call to action, which is just to make sure that you all are including equity, right, belonging and diversity in all the work that you do. And I'm producing a Super Bowl fashion show on Saturday. That should be fun, with some swanky athletes and a swimming pool, so pray for me. It should be fun.
My call to action, of course, if you guys do need help with your mindfulness, with your esoteric tools, with staying balanced, we do have our next cohort membership opening up for the Esoteric Blueprint. If you want to go to the esotericblueprint.com or stylephoenix.com, you can. And you can get on the list for that, and we can let you know when it's opening up again. And also we have a shop, shopstylephx.com. This vest sold out, not on there anymore, but there's other people. My mom over there is wearing the pants if she wants to get up and show anybody. My sister, yeah, so cute. My sister has a necklace on, so cute. All from our shop. Free shipping if you guys want to go order. It's all from independent designers, all from the United States, and we have a very sustainable method in how we do that too. So if you want to support, that would be awesome.
Excellent. Love it. please go online using that QR code on your program and even up here on screen, and get connected. Get connected with the community here tonight. For sure, we want to get your information so we can keep you involved in this continuous conversation, and you can do that by going to our site, which is 1 Million Entrepreneurs, who I represent, and I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to give you resources that you need to make sure that you can make your businesses better.
Angelia's members with 1 Million Entrepreneur. Also, we have an agreement in our partnership. One of our collaborations is that her members get access to my membership when we open them up moving forward too. So if you're already one of hers, you also get access to ours.
Yes, even more resources.
And I'm just going to say here that I think we have a hard stop on the live stream, so I don't know if folks that are listening, I just wanted to tell everyone, the Arizona Commission on the Arts offers various funding opportunities for individual artists, organizations, as well as organizations. And so I do have information on the back tables there on all of our granting programs. The folks that are listening through live stream, you signed up on our website, so you can also just go back to that same website and look at the grants page for more information on those. There's a big picture of me on the page, you can't miss it. What else should we talk about? I really want to go ahead.
Okay, I've received a grant from them before, so it's a real thing. I do just want to say that. I received a grant as an artist for my sound healing, so I'm also a musical artist, thanks to the Arts Commission. So keep that in mind too. It's a legitimate thing that you can apply for grants and actually receive them.
Yeah, we actually give you money, and also I know it's very intimidating, especially for the newcomers, to really get engaged with the grant process. But one of the things that we really try to do is make the process as easy as possible, so it's not so much labor. And we give you a lot of assistance. Like, you can literally just send me an email and we can jump on a call and I can answer your calls. We have a team of folks that will help you get your application done if you're getting into an area where you feel like you need more assistance. That's exactly what we're there for. It's literally our mission. So thank you for everyone for coming. The folks that are here, you're not going anywhere. Yeah, we're doing questions. I just want to thank the folks we have a hard stop, they might lose them, but just in case. Questions, hands up, where should I start? Okay, right here, I'm just going to make the rounds.
Well, hello, my name is Trey. First, I want to thank you guys for sharing your time and knowledge with us. Well, for me, one of the questions I had with you guys being in the fashion and business industry, what was some of the hardest challenges you had to face?
For me, it was literally business. You know, I was young when I started my business. It was 13 years ago. And so I was in my mid-20s, my early to mid-20s, and I read a bunch of books about starting business. And I learned that a lot of these successful business people said it could take 10 years before you even have any kind of money or anything, and that was hard. So for me, learning what I need to learn coming from our community where there's not a ton of really successful business people who have been long-standing and sustainable to be able to show us and tell us everything, I found a lot of mentorships, a lot of collaborations, and friends who could support me as I was learning and who had a lot of grace with me as I was trying to work through certain things. But for me, the hardest thing with money the hardest thing with business was, and still is money, you know, especially in this creative industry.
I would say the same, even more than that, resources, you know, and that's why, again, Fabric, the fact that you're here is tremendous, because that's the one thing I will tell you with young people especially, they don't know how to network. They don't know how to, like, just be in a space, meet people, shake hands, get numbers. You know, they're always like, well, what do I say? Like, I don't have a card, like, I don't, you know. But part of it is showing up, so kudos to you, young man. Showing up is part of the struggle, and you're getting there, so good job.
Money. I think that's going to be everybody's answer, but when you're an entrepreneur, it's like, how do I do what I love and afford it and pay my bills? And so I ended up having to work while I started my first fashion business. And you just, like I said, it's one of those things you love anyway, so I worked, you know, extra hours to be able to, come home from work and then work on the business. But money is always the biggest challenge, I think. But we have amazing resources in this state for grants and things that you should definitely apply for.
Mine's a little different, and sure, money. But for me, and maybe it's more personality, I had to learn to shut up and listen and really take in what's happening around me, because I was so excited all the time to share my idea and just run with it. And when I finally learned to just take that step back and really listen, and then it just really opened up a lot. So, and also money.
The humility when you're first starting business, yes, but also throughout the entire. I mean, I can joke about, do you know who I am? But I'm not really saying that. I'm not really even thinking that. You know, those are just jokes. The real part is, like I said before, that what energy do I need to be in to help create this space for what we all are looking for it to be. And that's one of the, using my intuition, all of us can say that, and that's a key for a lot of people, is using our intuition in business is the most important thing, because you get in these weird situations or these weird agreements or these weird contracts or collaborations, and you're just like, what am I supposed to do? You know, all these weird things can happen, and you really don't know. There's no way to really know if you're doing your own business other than I really got in touch with my intuition. So that's a big thing too.
All right, good question. Don't forget, we have something for you when you raise your hand for the first few people. We're not ready for our next question? Great.
Hi, my name is Maddie. So this kind of relates to what you guys are talking about. But when you first started out in the fashion industry, and even now, do you find yourself in spaces where you kind of have imposter syndrome and you feel like you don't belong or don't deserve the
Yeah. And then, so we're going to be brief if we can, so we can get everybody's answers.
My first fashion job was a cutter, and then I moved up to be the assistant designer and then the designer, and they gave me a business card, and they said, here's your business card, it says designer on it, and I gave it back. I was like, what? Like, I went to fashion school, majored in it, was working in it for a year, at least at that point, and I couldn't say that I was a designer, so yes, I think that's a real thing. I was like, I gotta earn this. I'm gonna be this for a while before I feel comfortable saying it. But then eventually you're like, okay, I've done my part.
I have always, as many of us, experienced different parts of imposter syndrome, but one of the most important things was I didn't used to, and then I did, and that happens too. I was confident, I knew, I was always a good student, I knew what to do, I was always going to work and all of that, so I didn't have imposter syndrome because I knew I was good at what I did, and then a lot of things came and hit my confidence. So another question is, you might not have it, and then you might have it. So, you know what I mean? And so I had to build up my confidence again, and I had to do a ton of esoteric things like affirmations and sleep hypnosis, and all of these things focus on confidence, and that's what I've noticed with most of my clients, male and female, and you know, all genders and all sexes, let's say, women, men, male, female, everybody. We all have to work on our confidence more than we realize we do, because society is always beating us down, telling us that we can't do it, or there's people around us who have weird energy who are like, you can't do it. So even if you do have imposter syndrome, work on your confidence so that you can work through it. And if you can hit that through your subconscious, that's even easier.
Yes. I see everybody. Okay. I'm going to go over and then we'll come back. We have a lot of questions. Hang on. I'm walking. This is for people on the live stream. This gentleman over here, I promised him he was next, so here we go. And we're here.
I want to say I'm honored to be here. Can we give them a round of applause one more time? One of the questions I had was, how do you determine your price? Like, for example, you might have somebody say, hey, we want to collaborate or partner. They might have champagne taste, but with beer money, right? So how do you determine your price? Because everybody's saying, like, money is a big thing. So how do you set your price?
So the question was, how do you determine the price? How do you set the price? Who wants to answer? Yeah, I think I'll let Angela answer that one.
We teach a costing class here so that you can figure out how to determine that price. And it's very analytical. It's not everybody's favorite thing to learn how to do, but there's a formula to it. And you're plugging in material costs and labor costs, and then if you're manufacturing, you're splitting it between how many you're making. That's actually what's determining the price. That's really what you should do.
And stick to that formula. I gotta tell you, stick to that formula, because here's the thing. You're gonna have family and friends that will tell you like, oh, that's so much. Ooh, that's so high. It's not for them.
next. Are we ready for another question? Fantastic.
Hi. So I'm really proud of this panel. I actually started here with my fashion career at Fabric in 2017. And I have a question, going back to the beginning of the conversation where you guys were talking about how to diversify the fashion industry, seeing real bodies on the runway, and how you guys are all paving ways for that and doing that on your own time. With the big industry, how do you feel that you guys should be coming to these smaller cities possibly instead of us always coming to New York or LA? Or how do you feel that the big fashion industry can claim responsibility for seeking new industries, because there's this need that everybody wants to diversify, and but we're constantly having to go to LA, we're constantly having to go to New York, where it's the same structure every time. How do you feel like the big industry can help with that?
Really good. So the question was, how do you feel that is it the local industry here can help with the bigger fashion industry? Oh, okay. Right, to the bigger markets, yes.
For some of the jobs, it doesn't really matter where you live. Like when I was on tour, for example, or as a stylist, it doesn't matter as much where you live as long as you're connected to all the right people. So all of us lived where we lived, and they would fly us to the first place. Where is rehearsals? This is where we go. So it didn't really matter where we lived, but what did matter was, did they know that I existed, and did they know that I am here to actually collaborate with them, to work with them, do things like that. So that's one way, but they have more ways.
And then here's the big thing. Why do you want to go to the big market? And it's a rhetorical question, but I'm just saying, like, the thing about it is fashion can happen anywhere. And I think we have to kind of explore our own neighborhoods and our own backyards and collaborating to create something here. Oftentimes we think, if you're not in New York, if you're not in LA, you're not really doing fashion. You actually are. In those bigger markets, and you have to think about, who do you want to be, right? Do you want to be small fish in really ginormous whale-infested market, or do you want to be, right, big fish in a market with other big fish? I don't know. You kind of have to ask. So there's some internal things you have to answer for yourself before kind of thinking about the market scope. So that's just my kind of 2 cents.
That's really important that I want to mention. I want to reiterate what that was, because I think that you might appreciate this. About 10 years ago, I was asking myself the same question: do I move to LA or do I stay here? I ended up moving later, but I stayed for a while, for a long time, a good amount of time, because you guys know who T.I. is, the rapper? He was giving me really good advice, and the advice was, ask yourself, do you want to be a big fish in a small pond and have to wade through all of that and figure it out, or do you want to be a big, did I say it backwards? Okay, whatever. Do you want to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond? And that was such a great question. She just asked it too. It made me think to myself, I could give myself a few more years to become a bigger fish in a smaller pond and see if I can even do this before I move forward. And that was his advice, was, can you do this before you move forward? And that really helped me, so that was great.
Are we ready for one? We have some more time. Sure. And then we're going to get little one here next from me. We got to get. We got a little lady. Yeah, she's been waiting. It's fine. Okay. I'm walking. I'm running. I'm waiting back and forth. Here I come. All right.
Have you been an art teacher before this?
Garden arts, okay. So I said we have a garden, and she joined our arts in the garden class at the garden. That's how we know her from. So my mom was teaching her art in the garden. So we've done that before as an arts instructors. But have you guys, other than fashion, all fashion is art too, and you've taught fashion too, right? Yeah. Okay. All of us, I was like, oh, so all of us on this panel, we have all taught at the university level of fashion, which we all consider art. Do you consider fashion art? Okay, well then yes, we've all been art instructors. Yes.
Great question. All right, we have another question here.
Hi, my name is Boogie Skywalking, and I really do enjoy being here tonight. My question is, with building a brand with so much emotion, as it's expressive of yourself, how do you delegate responsibility when you've built something so personal?
Great question. So question is, building a brand, how do you delegate responsibility? Okay, let somebody else repeat it for me. Okay. So here's the thing. Starting a brand is like birthing a child. Right? Oh, all of the things that go with birthing a child is the same thing. That's the amount of energy and love and passion and sleepless nights and days and crying and all the stuff that goes with it. But there comes a point where if you want to scale your brand, okay, that you learn that there are other people that do this thing that you're doing much better than you. Honestly, and Nikki's nodding because she knows. It's like, I can do this, but in the scope of the 24 hours that I have, should I really be the one doing this? And if the answer is no, because there's an accountant that can do that, and for a few dollars, right, you can get maybe an hour more of sleep, you'll be amazed how much better you'll feel if you get that hour of sleep. But what's important when it's your baby, though, you have to learn, just like we watch them ride bikes and grow up and start driving cars and eventually move out, hopefully sooner than later, you have to let go. And it's in that letting go that you realize that it is still your brand. There are just now other people that are vested in its success. So, yeah, that's...
I lost the .com and everything. I just got it back. I had to pay $3,000 for it a couple of years ago. So when anything can go wrong with business, we call that, I did like a founders F-up panels with Phoenix Founders Week or something like that a while ago, and that's what it was about, was because anything can go wrong, anything can happen, and you have to be willing to let go. And that's one of the hardest things, is like, I put everything into it and I might still lose it, but I put everything into it and I'm going to do my best to still maintain the best that I can, you know?
Great.
Again, ladies, thank you so much for making yourselves available to share the knowledge. So my question is more on maybe on a personal perspective, given the challenges that exist and maybe many failures that people run into. From a personal perspective, when you were at your lowest and you wanted to throw your hands up in the air and give up, what was the turning point for you that could potentially help somebody that either could potentially go through that or currently is going through that, to say, hey, you know what, I could also be able to overcome some of those challenges and some of those obstacles that come with maybe working in the industry?
Someone said this to me a few years ago. When they said it, it was like, oh my God. And this is what he said to me. I was having a moment. I mean, one of those where you're like, this is stupid. I should have stayed in corporate America. I was making money. Now I can't see money. You know, I'm like having a moment. And he looked at me and he says, failure is not permanent. And failure is also not the end, right? So when I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, so you mean I can get up and do this better, different, again? Correct. So if you look at failure in a different way, it's kind of reframing it. It is what it is, right? And when you're at those lowest points, you have to go back to this. A lot of people know what to do. A lot of people also know how to do it, but very few people know why they're doing it. If you understand your why, and I'm very clear about it, I wanted a different lifestyle for my family. I honestly wanted to have success on my own terms. I wanted to be there for the donut and coffee with the stinking principal at the school, because it was important to me, because they were in that grade for a very short amount of time. That, to me, were success markers that I had to pivot around. And once I saw that as, this is not a failure, it just didn't work. So let me try something else. And that's what typically happens. We fail and we go, that's it, I suck. This is, I'm never going to make another garment again. It just wasn't your time, and failure is not permanent. So just remember that.
There was a really great discussion on NPR a few months ago, and it's talking about the concept of the muse and about how the muse rewards those who show up, who toil every night, whether you feels like you're gaining ground or not. And that's something that has really stuck with me. It's just showing up, and all of you showed up tonight and with these wonderful questions, being in the room, and that takes you very far. There's no magical answer. It's all very individual. We all pull ourselves up with different inspiration, out of different depths for different reasons. But I think there's great value to just showing up.
Yeah, we definitely can.
Thank you. My name is Ruben, and I hope everyone's having a great evening. Thank you all for your wisdom and time. My question is, what are some systematic solutions to shift the power and influence in the fashion world? The reason why I said that is because Bernardo knows, who's the CEO of LVMH, is now the richest man in the world, but 78% of his wealth comes from people of color from the United States. How do we, in 1919, post Oklahoma to the fashion world? So that way, the people buying the product goes back to the community in which it comes from.
Here's the thing, you're not going to like my answer. First of all, I'm going to tell you that right now. You are the consumer. And as the consumer, your dollars speak volume. Part of the problem is we have designers that say, oh yeah, I don't make clothes for people of color. I hope they don't wear my clothes. And we rock the heck out of it. We rock it in sets and in the shoes and in the caps. And I've sat next to those designers, and they're very clear about you are not my consumer. And yet we continue to purchase from them. So the power is in your dollar. And what I mean by that is if you shifted to buying local brands, if you shifted to buying brands by designers of color, then guess what you've just done? You've just shifted the economy, right? The economic structure. This is all about money, believe it, right? To a brand that is positioning us in a positive light. But for a lot of us, we go, oh yeah, I know they said it's not for me, but I'm special. I'm going to show them. They could care less whether you show them or not. They just took your money, and they're still going to have a belief and a philosophy. So until we understand the power we have as consumers, right, and start speaking with our dollars, you all as millennials and Gen Zs have shut businesses down simply because you've chosen not to support them. So if you want to shift that economic power, do so with your dollar.
And use your voice too. Yeah. A lot of people, that's a great one. Yeah, good job. That was a good point, but I know some people are trying to talk. Use your voice too. So a lot of people, they get into a space and they're like, I don't really want to rock the boat. And I'm over here like, now that I'm here, I have a few things I want to say. You know what I mean? So just use your voice too. So make it a point to be a leader, everybody, within your own area. What matters to you? What can you do? Where can you go? Where can you be a leader? How can you use your voice? And then actually do it. That's what people don't do. I've sat in a lot of rooms, a lot of people who could have made a systemic change. And I'm like, okay, so I'm the only one. We're all just sitting here, and I'm the only one who's going to even say anything, who's going to care. And it's so refreshing when you find others who do care, whether it's part of your group or allies, and connect with them. And so it's kind of stealth mode sometimes where a lot of people are pretending like they care and they don't. That's where intuition comes in, and you say, I can see that the actions and the words are not, the energy, the actions and the words are not lining up. So where do I line up with who? And how can we collaborate in ways that we actually care and start cutting through the BS of who doesn't care and who does care?
Awesome. Everybody wants just a few. We are at the end of our evening. Thank you, audience. We have one more question? One more. Oh, of course.
The last question. One more.
All right.
Yes, the panelists will be here.
Real quick, temperature check for all these beautiful, fashionable people in here today. What is the identity of fashion in Arizona? And what is it, if you could say that?
fashion. What is the identity of fashion in Arizona?
If there is an identity, what is it? Kind of more so on like the whole market play conversation.
One thing I've noticed about Arizona is it doesn't really seem like we want to stand out all that much in our fashion for most of us. And I've noticed that it's typically only the fashionistas who are trying to like stand out, whereas everybody could be gathering our own fashion and being who we want to be without being a fashionista. And it would be much better if we could take on our own authentic style without having to worry about like, I don't know about the brands and this and that, because everybody can put together so many amazing things and create their own style that could become Arizona fashion and style. Like it is what we have, what we want, what we have is. But people don't think I'm from here. They think that I'm from New York usually because of how I dress, and that's a problem to me. I don't think I'm just all that. You know what I mean? And so that's one thing I recognize we are lacking some fashion identity, to where usually they're asking you where you come from or where you came from versus just assuming that you're from here, you know.
And I kind of think it's very eclectic, you know what I mean? Because so many people are transplants from other places. And so what I see is a range of style. I see fashion having a very kind of eclectic voice when you look at it in Arizona. And I think that's good, you know what I mean? But what I think sometimes unnerves me a little bit is people are like, well, this is in Chicago, or this is in LA, this is in Detroit. And I'm like, you're right, it is not, right? But it is actually what you make it and what you evolve it into. So I see a lot of different voices. I also see a lot of different design phases, from people just starting to people who are established. But it's very eclectic because people are coming from everywhere. And so I think you just kind of have to figure out for yourself what I said earlier. I don't know if you were in the room earlier, but it's all about what do you want to say. If you can figure that part out, you can do you in any market, including Arizona. So
When it's 125 degrees out, all you can wear is shorts and a t-shirt, then I think that's the reason that Arizona gets a bad fashion rap. Because, other places you can layer. So if you can take that and kind of run with it, if you're starting a business, I think that would be really helpful. Like, how do you jazz that up a little bit?
I guess I would say when you're traveling in the airport and other places, you can kind of spot fellow Arizonans very often through jewelry. I think is often kind of identifying. We're a very mixed community, very transitory community. A lot of people just in town for a season, so we have a lot of resort wear because of that you see all over town. We have a huge agrarian community that is a huge part of our population, so that's going to influence a lot of the styles. But there's no one particular style to Arizona. Historically, what do you have? Historically, it was the cowboy culture that was sold through magazines for an experience, but it wasn't reality. And I mean, if we really want to talk about the identity of Arizona, then we need to turn our attention to the indigenous dress styles. I mean, that's the dress of Arizona.
let me just clarify. You just said aha, right? But listen, here's the thing. Simply because there isn't one style doesn't mean it doesn't have style. You see what I'm saying? Simply because there isn't one style doesn't mean that it doesn't have style. And that's the thing I'm seeing, is there are a lot of just pockets of it, and it's growing. And so my big thing is figure out how you want to contribute to that so that you can develop a palette that is Arizona style, if there is such a thing. So there you go.
Okay, so we are basically done. We don't want to hold everybody here for too much longer. First and foremost, I want to thank all of our friends and family and everybody in the community. Most of us know at least somebody, we know you guys. So, yeah, so thank you for showing up. Somebody mentioned one of the most important things is actually coming, like showing up to things and being a part of it. And so thank you all for joining us. I also want to thank you. And for asking such amazing questions. There was like 15 more questions we could have taken, so thank you for your patience. I want to thank everyone, the panelists, my dear friends. I love them so much. We've been together for so long, and I'm so grateful to do so many things with them. And also the moderators and facilitators, two more good friends of mine. Thank you so much. I want to thank my Style Phoenix team. I want to thank Angelia with 1 Million Entrepreneurs and her team. And I also want to thank Keisha with the Arizona Arts Commission and her team as well for putting this together. Because of the Arts Commission, this event was able to be free. Okay, that's why it was free. It was because of the Arts Commission. That's a huge thing. What they want to do is help artists have more of these experiences. So thank you to everybody here. Thank you to everybody that joined us. And we will be here for some of us, if not all of us, will be here for a few minutes after if you have to ask questions or want to talk to us or want to meet us. But there's also some flyers out there for people to pick up on your way out. I also have my business cards out there. On the back of it is a mantra, okay? So I've had this mantra for years. It's a brand alignment mantra. If you want to take the card and just put it on your refrigerator and say that mantra to yourself back and forth, that would be great too for anybody who wants one. And find ways to connect with us. If anybody wants to get their social media, on Instagram, I'm at ashbash_stylephx.
And I'm at Black Russian Label.
At Fabric Tempe or Fabric Incubator.
Social media scares me. So we have a website and we have a marketing department. Phoenix Art Museum, yeah. phxart.org. And I forward all the posts.
So again, thank you so much. If you have any questions, we'll be here to answer some of your questions for you. And thank you so much for joining us. You have all been amazing and amazing questions.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.